Okay folks, welcome back. This is your old pal Hondo. We're going to be covering a common issue that these type of spincast reels have with the spinner heads. We're going to go over some scenarios and what some things that go wrong with these reels with the spinner cones, and maybe how to fix a few minor problems with it. And I'll go over a few examples here. We got the 202, which will cover the one pickup pin in the modern 202. We'll go over some fixes maybe for the Zebco 33 2020 with its pickup pin and spinners. We'll cover an American reel. This one will cover a lot of the 1990s through the 80s type of pickup pins and spinner cones and the common issues that these older ones have. This will work on the Zebco Classic Feather Touches, the Zebco 33 Authentics, the Rhino Tough, and the later generation of Legacy reels as well. It'll cover the American side of that reel. And we have the most common generation of J series of import reels from Zebco 33 as well. We'll cover this series of reels as well. The first reel we're going to get into is the modern reel, the modern Zebco 33, and the common problems you might face with this one with the spinner cone, and maybe some fixes and some tricks to help you fix the spinner cone on these. The way you want to take the spinner cone off of these is you basically hold down the handle crank and just turn it the opposite way to take it off. Now with these newer generations of reels, their spinner cones are a little bit different than the subsequent generation of reels. The springs are inside the underneath the black cover, so you can't replace the springs in this. So you would literally have to buy a new spring, new spinner head for this if you damage it. Now if you damage it right here with using braided line, and it scores this little area here and puts a little slit in there, the spinner head will be no good, and you'll have to buy a new spinner head. You can go to Zebco.com and order you a new spinner head if that's the case. If you're having an issue with these pickup pins not coming out when you're casting, and you've used this Zebco 33 heavily to the point where you need to maintenance it and you forget to maintenance this spinner head, some of the issues, if it does have weak springs, you're going to have to buy a whole new spinner head for these newer ones. But if that's not the case, you could oil it. You put oil and grease underneath the pickup pins right here, and you take a little bit of grease or oil and oil underneath it and around the cams right here, and put a little bit of grease underneath it, and that should fix up some of your issues with your spinner head and your pickup pins not functioning right. Now if it's got a weak spring, you cannot replace them. The springs are built into the spinner cone. You will have to literally replace the whole entire spinner cone on these newer reels, which is a bummer and you cannot fix. So that will clear up some of the issues with the newer reels, where if they're not coming out right, or you get a little slit from using braided line in these reels, which do not use braided line in any of these spin cast reels. If that's the problem, you will have to go to Zebco's website at Zebco.com to order the parts. The way you order the parts is it goes to the website, and you can get the code off the, right here you type in the code that's on the bottom of the foot of the reel into the website and order yourself a new spinner cone. That is basically, you have to replace the whole spinner cone if the springs get weak on these, or it does, a line damages the spinner cone, you're going to have to replace the whole spinner cone. There is no saving the spinner cone on these newer generation of reels. You'll have to order a new one. But if you're having a problem with the pickup pins not working properly, and you use this reel religiously for years and never cleaned it, and you forget to clean that spinner head, all you gotta do is re-oil it and grease it, and that should fix most of your pickup pin problems with the newer one. Like I said, if it's a major problem like the springs are wore out, you're going to have to buy a whole new spinner cone for that. The next reel we're going to cover is the 202. Common problems with this one, it usually is weak springs, and they can be replaced, or I can show you a fix that might save the reel. If you're having an issue with the pickup pin not coming out properly, one thing is improper maintenance on the spring and the pickup pin itself, from not oiling it and greasing it regularly like you should. We're going to take off the spinner cone. It's the same concept as the other reel. You hold on to the handle. This one's a little bit trickier to do, but it comes right off. And right here is the spring right here. The spring is right here, and if you got a problem, you could having this coming out and it's not, the spring's not coming out properly, you could push this entire piece out right here. You take a small little tiny wrench or flathead screwdriver, move it down, and remove the pickup pin itself from the reel by pushing it down and pulling it out like so, and it's not ejecting right. Even if you oiled it and it doesn't eject it right, you could remove the pickup pin like so and take the spring off and stretch it out a little bit, and that should fix your problem with the pickup pin. And to put it back in, you just basically push it back in like so, and get it in there if I can to push it back in, or you can replace the spring one way or another, but I recommend you to stretch that spring out a little bit. That might help alleviate some of the problems. But if you oil this pickup pin on the 202 regularly and put a little bit of grease on it, you shouldn't have that problem. But if it's not ejecting properly, you just take that pickup pin off and stretch it out a little bit and replace it, and it should fix that problem no time flat. If there's more of an issue with the spinner cone and for some reason you were using braided line on this and it damages the spinner cone, there's no fix for that. If it gets a little slit from using braided line, you're going to have to replace this whole entire spinner cone. So again, you're going to have to go to Zebco.com and find the code right here, the model number on the reel, and type that in and get yourself a replacement spinner cone. If you just need a spring to replace this one, you could do that too, or you could just stretch it out like I showed you, and that should fix your spinner cone problems with your 202. If it's a Daiwa like that and has the same type of pickup pin setup, you could do that with a Daiwa or a Fluger or a Shakespeare reel that has the same setup, pickup pin setup like that as well. And just make sure you oil and lube that pickup pin regularly, and you shouldn't have a problem with that. But if it's a spring issue, you can just stretch that spring out, take the pickup pin out and stretch it out, and that should fix the spring on most one pickup pin cheaper reels. Okay, the third reel we're going to look at now, cover the American generation of reels from Zebco. Most one pickup pin type of reels are very similar to these and have the similar spring on spring pickup pin system. We're going to open it up. We're going to take the spinner head off of it. Now the things to check if you're buying an older reel or just from using it over time is to check to see if there's any damage on your spinner head. If there's like a little slit in your spinner head, you're going to have to replace it. These older reels though, you're going to have to buy a reel exactly like it from the same year as a parts reel to fix this. Most of the common problems people have with these older reels is these pickup pins don't come out because they either didn't service the head when they serviced the reel. By fixing that problem is that you clean it out with WD-40 with a toothbrush, and then you put a little bit of grease behind the pickup pin and put a drop of oil on the cam here and underneath it as well. And right here at the top of the spinner cone in these older reels, there's a little hole on top. You put a little drop of oil in there, and that should fix any problem you're having with the spinner, the pickup pin's not coming out correctly. You just clean it and then re-grease it and oil it. That should fix it. If that's the problem, not the problem, the spring right here, there's a little spring that gets weak, and you'll have to replace that spring by taking a pair of, needle nose pliers, pulling this spring out off of here and replacing the spring with the same type of generation of reels spring. So basically you're going to need another parts reel to take the spring out of the spinner cone to fix that problem. So make sure if you're going to buy one of these older generations of reels to buy the same year and model off of eBay as a parts reel, so you can replace parts if you need it. And that should fix any problem with your older reels. If the pickup pin's not working, just a few things that you could do to maybe fix that problem. Okay, now we're at the newer / generation of reels from the mid 2000s. This is the J series of Zebco 33s. The common problems with these reels with the spinner cones is if you wore out the spinner cone, you're gonna have to replace it. I think they still sell parts for this generation of reel. Again, if you want to find parts, there's a code right here at the bottom for the model number. You go to Zebco.com, put the code in to get your spare parts. They may still make parts for this, but I can show you a few little tips and tricks to fix this. If you have an issue with the pickup pins not retracting and going back in, you have to take the spinner cone off again by holding the handle down and pulling the spinner cone off. Now, a lot of problems with these type of reels, like I said, with all the other reels, is it gets line damage on the spinner cone with a little slit right around this area here. From using improper line use, using braided lines with these will ruin these. So monofilament and fluorocarbon's the way to go with these, so you don't get as much line damage from using those type of braided lines on these. Will ruin these spinner cones, and if you're using braid on this, you will have to replace the spinner cone after a few years of using it. Some of the reasons why a lot of these newer generation J reels, if you're having a problem with the pickup pins not working right, is that the springs on the inside here can be replaced, which is very convenient. Unlike the modern Zebco, you can't replace them. But if you have a weak spring and it's not pushing out even after you service the reel, how you can tell is it won't retract really well. If it has a weak spring, it won't do that. If it doesn't do that, that means the springs will need to be replaced. So you can go to Zebco.com and order yourself a new set of spinner cone springs. The way you take them off is you take it off here, and then you take it off this little notch here to replace it right here, if you can see it. And then you take that spring off, and then you put it back on in the same order that you took it off, and that should fix your spring. If that's not the problem, and you're still getting a little bit of springiness to your spinner, to your pickup pins, then all it needs to be is cleaned. All you have to do is spray it with some 409, take a toothbrush or a cotton Q-tip, clean it out, and then put a little bit of grease behind here on both of the pickup pins, put a drop of oil on the cams here, and that should fix most of your problems. And over here on the other side, you put a little drop of oil here on the reel, and right here with oil, and right here with oil, and that should help lubricate the spinner head, and that should alleviate some of the problems you might have. But if it's not, because it needs to be cleaned, you're going to have to replace the springs, and that's easier said than done. Put the model number of the reel in and buy new springs and replace them. It's as easy as that to fix the spinner cone issue that you have with your Zebco reels, or your Daiwas, or your Lew's, or your Shakespeare reels. In general, you just go and order some parts online and get your parts to fix it, and it should be a no problem to fix it. Like I said, this type of setup, these type of pickup pins on these reels that are on other brands of reels, this method should also fix those as well. not just for the Zebcos, for the Shakespeares, the Flugers, the Daiwas, and the Luz, and the Cast King type of reels. That should fix those reels as well. And that's pretty much how you fix a spinner cone on the 202 33s from different generations. The American covered the American reels. It covered the early imports, the newer import, and the 202, which is basically the same reel now as it was a few years ago. So that should fix basically all your problems with your 202s and other brands of reels too on the market. Well, folks, I hope you like this quick and simple fix on a spinner cone issue on a spincast reel. If you found this video helpful, please hit the subscribe, share, like, and leave me a comment and tell me what you think of this video. And y'all know what you can do. This has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. You put God first, he puts you first every time. And you know what else, YouTube? God loves you. So does Hondo. Peace out, YouTube.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's